Welcome to the Practice Podcast, a show created by lawyers to help lawyers in life and business without all the complicated lawyer language. Let's welcome Bast Amron founders and your hosts, Jeff Bast and Brett Amron.
Hi, Jeffrey.
Hey, Brett. Happy Friday.
It's Friday.
It is Friday. It's Friday for us. It may not be Friday for whoever's listening to this.
The listener.
The multitude of listeners.
Well, I'm happy to be here on a Friday, and we do have a special guest here today with us. I'm pretty excited about.
I am. I'm also excited. I don't know if my excitement level matches your level of excitement, but it's all relative.
Well, we'll see as we go.
Exactly.
Our special guest today is a renowned architect. He is a graduate, University of Florida. Go Gators.
He's renowned in this room, by the way, for sure.
No, he's renowned.
Yeah.
He has a degree in design. He also has a master's in architecture, both from the University of Florida. Go Gators. This gentleman is committed to helping each client achieve their unique aesthetic vision. He has nearly 3 decades of experience. That means he's old. Using his design talents to realize successful commercial architecture projects in South Florida market, while maintaining focus on the primacy of good design. This individual quickly learned the critical role of scheduling and budget play in meeting the client's needs. Over the years, he has accrued the knowledge, skills, and experience needed to strike the delicate balance between the art and business of architecture. He is quoted as saying, "The project's budget and schedule are a given that must be maintained. However, it is the architect's mandate to incorporate design and innovation into all projects." He is a Miami native. He is happily married for over 20 years and a proud father of 2. He enjoys playing guitar, is an avid sports fan, celebrating as much as you can celebrate the Miami Dolphins, the Miami Heat, and the Florida Gators. And his claim to fame is that he is the architect and designer of the space we are sitting in today. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, Erik Myers.
Thank you, guys. Probably should have started with the claim to fame of your office, but I'm good. Yeah.
If you haven't been to our office, you are invited to come down and check it out.
Whoa. We're just open,
Just
like an open invitation.
Yeah, just like that. Just like that.
It's
I didn't
beautiful.
even get pre-authorization for that. I just went and did it. It's now public. It's out in the domain. Anyone, you're welcome to join us. Call us.
Well,
We'll
call
give
us
you a tour.
first, or do you just show up?
Yeah, just
Okay.
whichever.
I would make an appointment first.
I think making an appointment is probably the best, best protocol. But
Welcome
Thank
to
you.
the podcast.
I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah. How do you like sitting in your design and sort of taking it all in?
I think that's the benefit of being an architect versus any other profession, is that when you're done, you can walk inside and enjoy the space and watch other people enjoy the space. So I love it with all of our work, and seeing those in it enjoy being there and using it.
when you come into the space, do you truly enjoy it, or are you walking around going, "I should have done that. We could have done this. This is wrong. This is right"?
The answer is yes.
Are you able to turn that off, or how do you?
No, I'm able to enjoy the space. I look at things that we could have potentially done differently, as well as I relive everything that happened during construction. So it's a combination of all of it.
I mean, that's a fair question. Like, is there ever a point, even in your own home, right, that you can walk in and just sit down and enjoy it and not, from an architect's perspective, think, "Oh, God, should I change that? We could have done that." I mean, that's got to be difficult.
Those around me know that I never turn that off. It's always on. When we renovated our kitchen, the tile installer didn't do it perfectly while I was away for the day. And I'm not going to have it ripped out, but I see it. Nobody else sees it, but every day I see it. So
Right, and you can't not see it.
I can't not see it. We just had a roof redone. There's one part I don't like, but I can't change it. So it's always turned on.
Yeah, but what a cool treat, though, to design something and then see it come to fruition and then enjoy the benefit, or see the people who you designed it for, enjoy the benefits.
That's really the best benefit, is seeing the people enjoy the space. And that's why I love what I do. It's the most fulfilling part of it, is seeing the completed space and the people in the space.
And how does it feel right now? You designed this podcast recording studio, and now you're in it, enjoying it with the people you designed it for.
Ever since Brett mentioned the opportunity to come and do this, I've been looking forward to it, because I know the soundproofing we put in the walls, the special glass that's on the front. So I was looking forward to being part of this for sure.
So let's have a moment of silence so we can hear the silence in there.
Yeah,
it's not quiet.
We'll edit that out. The moment that was a very long. We just sat there for 5 minutes in silence, but we edited it out. Yeah,
you cut all that out.
Yeah, we cut that out.
Wow.
Yeah, it's called post-production.
That is amazing.
Yeah. No, we're good like that. So when did you realize that architecture and design was something that you wanted to do?
So when I was in high school, I was always, actually in middle school, high school, I enjoyed math, I enjoyed art, and I was looking for a profession that could maybe put those together. And back in those days, we didn't have as many magnet schools as we had, so really I went to Miami Killian, because being a native, and there was a drafting class. And so I took that drafting class and I seemed to excel. I really enjoyed it. There were a couple projects where you could just decide what you wanted to do, and so I felt like that was an opportunity. I didn't always dream of being an architect, but I guess as I got older and got in the profession, I realized how much I enjoyed it and looking at buildings and understanding buildings. And so when I did go, again, University of Florida, I went in with two potential majors. One was architecture, one was accounting, to, again, the math and the art.
Wow.
I didn't get past the A's in the book. I really opened just in the beginning.
What's an E? Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But those are really different.
Well, they are. And I always felt like you need a career that would be financially rewarding so you could actually live, but something that you would want to enjoy. And what I quickly found out is I don't care how rewarding accounting was. That wasn't for me. And I really enjoyed the architecture. I took classes for both. And throughout going to University of Florida, I was 1 credit short of having a minor in business. So I did follow the business almost all the way through, but really enjoyed the architecture. So that's when I switched over.
Now, I went to University of Florida.
You did?
Wanting to study architecture. And my kids have heard this story 1,000 times, but I don't know if I've told this on this.
No, but we want to know.
I have not heard it.
Wait.
Some unnamed person caused me to make a life decision. So somebody said to me, hey, that's like the hardest major here at Florida. And I never even took an architecture class. Wow. I just decided, and you know what I majored in? Accounting.
Oh, did you really?
Yes. So
and you're using
my question to you is...
But wait, I'm sorry. Can we go back before we get to the question of Erik and our guest? Who is that person?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I tell that story to my kids about
randomly at a party
and young people to encourage them to think carefully about not what you do in college, because I don't think that matters as much, but think about what you want to do in life and don't not do something because it's hard. Like, we do hard things. It's like one of my family's themes. We do hard things.
Right.
And so I did not major in what I wanted to do.
Amazing.
Because somebody who scared me off. And it's like this person who I've told the story 1,000 times, this unnamed person caused a pivot in my life.
So listener, if you are that unnamed person,
please come to the office.
Please reach out to me.
Right.
And we're going to do a podcast with you as our guest.
And so my question to you is architecture actually the hardest major at Florida?
Well, having not taken all other majors, it's hard to answer. I will say it is extremely time consuming.
I would think your wife might disagree with that.
It is time consuming, and even the people. My wife's a pediatrician, and she went through medical school.
Exactly.
And but she will say that I spent more hours. We didn't know each other then, but we talk about what we did. That we spent more hours in architecture than she did. Maybe her residency competes, but you're there
a longer period of time. She did it, but right.
But in the undergrad and grad in the 6 years of being at Florida, you're pulling all-nighters. You're doing 2-3 days in a row with very minimal to no sleep to get the work done. So it's difficult in time and endurance. I would say core study-wise, you have to be good in physics and math. You have to get through the MEP classes, mechanical, electrical, plumbing.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. Structural, there's history. So there are core classes that you have to understand. I would put it this way, on top of just understanding and doing well in all those classes, you have to do well in design. And it's a weed out process. So they'll start with probably 70 to 80 undergrad design 1 students. And so each semester it's design 1, 2. So your first 4 years, you go through design 8. And from 1 to 2, there's a big drop off. And 2 to 3, there's a big drop off until you get to that design 8. And in the middle, between 4 and 5, that's your second year going into your third, there's a pinup process where you have to put all your work on the wall. You walk away for 2 days and they tell you whether you're going to continue in architecture or not.
Wow.
Which is, it's quite terrifying. And so it's not easy.
You had me at physics. I'm out. But I think for everyone like we are today, sitting on the 24th floor of a building, are quite happy that being an architect is a difficult process. Correct. And it is hard, right? Like you want to make sure that buildings stay up.
You do. And on top of the education, the process for getting licensed is quite difficult. When I went out, there were 9 tests you had to take. Mm-hmm. You had to do, if you have a master's, it's 2 years of an internship. If you have a professional degree, it's 3 years of an internship. Then before it was 9 tests, then it went down to 7. There's 5 now, but I think the 5 tests that they have now are more difficult than the 9 that I took. Before it was, this is 1 test simply for structures. Now there's 5 tests where everything get blended together. So it's the passing rate to actually become a licensed architect is quite difficult. Mm-hmm. It's a long process. I don't think many people know from beginning to end what you have to do, but it is a long process to be a licensed architect.
And that's state by state?
It is state by state. Most states you can move your license around. It's about paying a fee and submitting, unless you're going to California or New York, and then other states coming to Florida because of the hurricane codes here. There's a little bit extra, but going to California probably the hardest from out of state. But most states, I got my license in Georgia, and it was basically paying a fee and waiting.
Earthquakes, fires, floods, California. Yeah.
In California, a lot of energy codes that you have to be up on. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you, like us, so you tell us the trajectory to get to where you are today, mm-hmm. In the practice of architecture. Because you started at a big firm, right?
So I took a different step, and I always think back that I can't believe I did this, but between undergrad and grad, I took 2 years off of college. I wanted to, before I went and got my master's, I wanted to work in the industry and make sure it's what I wanted to do. So
wise. Yeah. I like it.
So I came home, I lived with my parents, and I got a job at a firm that was including me when I got hired. There were the principal and 3 drafters, young architects. So it was the 4 of us. And I did that for 2 years. And as hard as the decision was to do that, it was a very hard decision to stop. I was moving up in that firm. I was running projects after 2 years. And to give him credit, my boss at the time offered me a pretty generous raise not to go back to school. Probably a bad move because you have to get
for you or for him?
Well, as being a business owner now, I have a certain mentality that I think the generation above us didn't have. And I don't look out just for myself. I look out for the interest of all my employees. And so I see myself as raising architects. In that moment when you have an architect that's young and wants to go get their master's, I think it's the right move to tell them.
To encourage them.
Go get your license, come back to me, when you have it, but encourage everybody to. I try to encourage all my employees to be licensed architects. I mean, that's what you went out for. So I did leave. I went back to school. I knew what I wanted to do. And I would say after having the 2 years of experience, going back to grad school was much easier. I didn't pull as many all-nighters. I knew how to manage my time better from, going from school to work. You really learn how to work better in a work environment. And so I managed better. I think my projects were better. I had a better mix, I think, of reality and abstract, because in school, they just want you to be abstract. So it worked out well. It was a good path. Maybe it was that person that told you not to go in architecture, told me to take 2 years off. I'll commend them for that. Because I still don't understand how he made that decision or remember why, but I think it was the right move.
I do think, having gone to law school straight out of college, I do think that I probably would have benefited by going to work for a little while before going back. That perspective and the time management, I think, and just
maturity,
a couple more years of maturity. Sure.
And I think for me in particular, maturity is a big thing. My wife and I, again, her being the pediatrician, always talk about this. I was one of those kids that had a October birth date, end of October. And so I started kindergarten when I was 4. And I was like one of the youngest people going to college. I was the youngest one turning 21. I turned 21, it was my senior year. And I think those 2 years of maturity, coming back, working, and then going to grad school and being, instead of slightly younger than everybody, slightly older than everybody, that went straight through. I think that maturity helped as well. All in all, I look back on it as being the right decision to take.
I would guess you learned probably more in those 2 years than you did in the previous 4 or the next.
I certainly took it more seriously. In undergrad, everybody focuses on the design and the abstract. And then I realized all those other classes that we kind of had to do well in were more important. Understanding those books from all those other classes are what you really relate to when you're working on a project. They have the real nuts and bolts of putting a project together, which is obviously the most important. Design is important, and they teach you that, but also the construction of it and understanding the other parts and the other fields that are involved, because we just design it. You got to know what the developer does, what the contractor does to make yourself a better architect.
So you go University of Florida, you graduate, take 2 years off work, go back for your master's, and then you join a firm.
Yes.
And, you worked your way up there. Like, tell us sort of the evolution from that to then going to opening your own business and becoming a business owner and growing that.
So those 2 years I worked for a firm. When I left, my mentor, who was a good friend of mine at the time, in those 2 years I was in school, he had switched firms to a different firm. And I thought about going back to the original firm, and I called them. I was talking to them. I interviewed with them about going back. But the one that my friend went to and my mentor, I'm like, I think I should follow him. It felt like a better step. And so I came back. I started really kind of low level at that firm. And actually in grad school, the second year of grad school, I took a program that was on Miami Beach. They worked with the city of Miami Beach, and you would work on municipal projects and kind of come up with design ideas on those things. And so I actually, my second year of grad school, I lived in Miami, and I started working for that firm part-time. And so I eased my way in. So I started at the bottom, and as I worked up, I didn't ask for the next position, but I would see what the people above me were doing, and I just started doing their jobs. I felt like I was pretty confident that I could do what they were doing, and I quickly became one of the younger project managers at that firm. And that firm grew. I was there. We went from a firm of about 8 people to about 25, I think, in our largest. And it was entertaining to have a firm that big, to be in control of so many projects. And I would say leading into 2007 and 8, when the economy started turning, being the head project manager, feeling like you're running the office, even though you're not the president, you're not really doing it, but in control. And even though I had my projects I was working on, I really monitored everybody else's, whether I was officially doing that or not. And then when the economy turned, things got slow. We went from 20-something people to back down to about 7. We got pretty small pretty quick. And at that time, there were jokes at, I was in my cubicle and people have come and gone, and they're like, you're just going to die in that cubicle. But I was comfortable. I mean, I think I had a decent salary. We were talking about potential partnership, owner transition, and a few things happened at the same time. After about a year with my boss going over the framework, what if a partnership might be, I got official paperwork on an offer. And it wasn't necessarily the offer that I wanted, that I felt we talked about. And I saw the level of buy-in that would be there. And I thought, for that kind of money, I could probably, for the percentage, I could start my own and fail a few times over, and maybe it wasn't worth it. And at the same time, another employee there had gotten an offer that you hear of things like this all the time, where we're moving to the state of Florida. There's going to be hundreds of jobs over the next years, and we're going to work with just you, and which never happened. But this other employee brought it to me. He wasn't a licensed architect, and he said, how about you and I start a firm together? You'll be licensed. We could split all the jobs like 60-40, 70-30. We could work something out, but we have this client. Let's go. And I kept thinking about it, and I liked him, but I didn't really want to start a firm with him. I didn't want to go in with an unlicensed architect and just say, I'm automatically giving up money to you in a partnership. And I felt like I need to try it on my own. But once you get that bug in your head of like, maybe I should do it, it's hard to stop. And so, I'm sitting there doodling of what logos could look like and maybe what the name could be. And there was just one day I'm like, I have to do it. And so I made the decision. I set up the incorporation. And the toughest part, I was there 16 years, which is a long time to be in one place. And as opposed to some people you hear, they didn't like their boss. I really liked him. He was a father figure to me. He really taught me the industry. He taught me how to do it right. Again, a different mentality of a different age group, but I think the right ways to run a business and deal with people. Maybe we did some things differently, but I don't think right or wrong. We just did things differently, but I felt like it was time to go off. So I had to break the news, tell them I was going off on my own. And then the one beauty of architecture, I think, compared to some other companies, is really to start on your own. If it's going to be just you literally need a computer and not much else.
You mean that's all you need, right?
Yeah, that's all you need.
You said that, Mom.
Yeah. And so we took one of the bedrooms in our house. I set up a desk, the computer, got the software I needed. When I mentioned I was leaving, there were a couple clients that liked working with me. I made it clear that I didn't want to steal clients from my previous employer. So I did announce to people that I was leaving, and a couple of them said, well, you'll need this. There was another company out there that offered me some contract work that really helped when I first got started. And I was busy quick. Very quickly, work was coming in. It's interesting to start your own business and not really know that side. I never learned that side. I knew I had to do the architecture. So, well, I like to say I had my business team. So Brett was very helpful on the legal side. My brother, who I believe was here previously, was my financial planner. I have a brother-in-law who's an accountant. I leaned on everybody pretty heavily, and all had started businesses prior to me. And so they had very good insight on things to do. I found the beauty of not using Excel and using QuickBooks and getting that set up because that's the only way to do it. But it was enjoyable. And the idea of what I thought the business would be, and I could just go do this during the middle of the day and then work here and there, quickly was wrong on that I was working a lot of hours.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many parallels between what you did and what both Brett and I did, going out on our own, starting our own firms. And that idea is so, I think, daunting to many people. But you said so many things that I wanted to comment on. The first one was that you were comfortable. And that, I think, comfort is what keeps most people in, tedious jobs. Not that yours was tedious, but is that they're comfortable. They get a paycheck, they have a desk, they like that desk, they do their job, they get paid, that's it. They go home, there's no risk. And it takes something to jog you out of that, some spark to just get uncomfortable. And then what you did was you asked for help. Like, you gathered your village, like your brother, your best friend, like some other people, and you just assembled the team to put it together. And it's actually not as hard as, most people think, like on the surface. But when you start, crunching numbers and crossing the T's and dotting I's, you're like, oh, I can do this. Yeah,
you figure out, and I think there is certain individuals that can do this, and there's some individuals that don't have the drive, potentially.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
But yeah, I figured this is something I certainly can do. And so I did set a certain amount of time that if financially it wasn't working, there was a deadline where I really needed to see if it's going to sustain itself. But within the first few months, I felt like this isn't going to be a problem. I had enough work. I had enough history. And I think that's the other thing is maybe the first day out of college, you can't do it. But after having 10, 15 years and knowing people and knowing leasing agents and knowing contractors and them building trust in you, the work started coming in the door. And I've been lucky that my career, I've never had to market a lot. We still talk about social media, but we have a lot of work that walks its way in the door. I think, we're known as not being the most expensive, but not the cheapest, but we do a really good job on the drawings and it helps out construction schedules. And so I feel like there are contractors and developers that have trust in us. And so that part has worked out well. And that first year I made more than I did any of the years previously working. And it's only gotten better. So it worked out well.
Yeah. And, your comment about people, doing it right out of school.
Yeah.
That to me, I'm the most impressed by that. When you see a law student graduate and then they go hang out a shingle and start practicing. But I think for those people, I'm not sure if that's, courage or ignorance. Like they just don't know what they're like. They don't know what they're getting or what they don't have enough experience to know what they're getting into and how crazy it is. But I'm always impressed by people who are able to take that plunge. But
it has to do with personality. I'm a cautious person, and so whether it's investments or whatever I'm doing, I'm very cautious about each step that I take, and I think it through. And so, for my personality, there would be no way that it could happen. I would have to. It's like what I did, taking 2 years off before actually going back in the master's and working the industry. I needed to work the industry and understand it before I could open my own practice.
I think I would say instead of cautious, I would use the word deliberate, right? And that's sort of how it's your approach to architecture, right?
Yeah.
Details matter. You're going to look over everything and make sure it's right. Absolutely. So I would say that maybe I agree with Jeff. I mean, we did it similar to you in that we got to a point in our career where we were comfortable that we not had mastered the art of practicing law, because you never do that. It's practice. But we got to a point where we were comfortable that we knew what we were doing, right? In terms of being a lawyer and in the area that we practice, just like you felt, I think after 16 years or however many years you were.
16 at that firm and 2 before that.
Right. So a long time. And you, I think, felt comfortable. Hey, I know what I'm doing when it comes to architecture. But then there's a different leap, into, now I got to run a business.
Correct.
And once you left and started your business, right? Because it's like a flood. And I know you had a village around you. Did there come a point in time when you said, okay, I got this. Like, I know how to run this business now. Now it's a matter of sort of managing it and dealing with growth. And
there's a point, at least for me, when you start it, it's very uncomfortable. And year after year, you just don't know where it's going to go. And I know from everything that I've seen, the first 5 years are the most difficult when you build it, and then it starts to level off. And that build for me was very uncomfortable. And I still remember the day, the first few checks that I got were small checks. And I remember the first day where I got a check that had a lot of zeros behind it from a client, and literally shaking as I'm bringing it to the bank because I just want to deposit it because, wow, that's never happened before. I think a couple of the big steps is when I'm at home 7 days a week, getting a few hours sleep each night. And instead of just sitting and watching TV with the family, I'm in the back watching TV and working and realizing I need to hire somebody. I need to get office space. I need to buy more computers. I need a phone system. I think it wasn't until after that growth of having employees and then being able to realize you can maintain their salary, you can maintain the benefits, you can maintain the firm, you can maintain a 3 to 4 month buffer of, covering the monthly nut of the company. Once I realized that for a couple years, which was probably about 6 years in, did I start being comfortable with the company where I'm a little bit more laid back. I mean, I used to look at a spreadsheet daily when I came in of what do we have, what's our future earnings, where we're going to be. And now it's more of, I could probably look at that once a month and I just know where I'm at. You get comfortable with the inflow and it, because that's what keeps the company running. So I would say about 6 to 7 years in, and we're in year 11 right now.
And did you say you've hired your first person after 5 years?
No, that was, I would say after 2.5 years is when I probably should have done it after 1.5 years. Right. But after 2.5 years, I hired the first person. We got a small office space for the two of us and quickly needed to add a third person. And then when we got the fourth person, then we had to grow the office and we got into the space that we're in now that has growth for, we're at 5 right now and we could probably fit 8 in the office that we have. But that's the other thing is I'm constantly evaluating what I want the company to be. And when you first start, you think of these mega companies that have 30, 40, 50 people. And for me, the small firm I've realized is what I want. I don't want to grow. 8 employees would probably be a good sweet spot for me, as long as while I'm the only licensed architect there, which we have one that just got a license, another one that's about to be. And, as they move up, it may make things a little bit easier. But, your license, when you sign the drawings, it's just you. It doesn't matter who's below you. So I take that that responsibility I take quite large. And so reviewing the drawings, making sure when you sign it, when they go out to bid, having them be right is important. So the larger that would get, the less oversight I would have. And I'm not comfortable with that.
Yeah. That's where that cautious and deliberate, those characteristics come into play. And I kind of want that in an architect. Like, I want my architect to be cautious. Let's go for it.
Right. To me, though, anyone who practices with me knows I am a firm believer in that too, even with words. Like that buildings aren't going to fall if we make a mistake. Like a client may be harmed or the firm or whatever it is. But to me, attention to detail is super important. Obviously, for us, different, like Jeff said, buildings won't fall down if we, miss a detail.
But it's details, it's words. All of our notes have words that have have good meaning and cover yourself. And, we do a lot of continuing education, which I assume, most professionals have to do. But we also have a lot of vendors come in and, we jokingly have lunch and learns, and we'll joke that it's more about the lunch, but it's really about the learn. We bring in reps when we're working on a project. And we want to know about door hardware. We call the company, they send somebody and they'll spend an hour talking about it to follow up, and they'll tell you what's new and what's out there. We've recently had window covering reps and carpet reps and,
Well, that's for the design side.
Design and detailing.
Yeah.
A lot of those details are important.
Yeah. I mean, the detail, it's crazy. Yeah, for me, I think I don't know about Jeff's. For me, it was if we get to 5 years, if I got to 5 years, I felt comfortable like after that, like you, like 7 years, like, okay, listen, anything could happen after that. But for me, it was like you get to 5 years and, then you've got something.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm still kind of waiting till I'm not there yet. I'm just kidding. But I don't think there was a moment where
we've passed 14. We're in year 15.
Right, exactly right. The idea of hiring, like I hired early, and my view is like in a service business, if you don't have other people working with you, then you don't have a business. You are the business, right? And so you started hiring. It took you a while to get there, but then once you did, you probably realized, oh my God, why did I wait this long? Right?
It makes things easier because when you turn a proposal and let's say you have 10 proposals out and you're praying they all don't come back at the same time, where when you have people working for you,
you're praying they all do.
Not only do they have to, you want them to, but you can manage it. If all come in, if half of them come in, you can manage it.
Right.
And I think the part of growth right now that we're going through is, I'm still that sole practitioner mentality where I still do the accounting and I do the HR. And that's what I need to cut out now. So if anybody's listening and is interested in part-time HR / bookkeeping.
Yeah, we'll make some introductions.
We got some referrals.
But that's really, I think the next step is that I need to get rid of that mentality and just be the architect and have other people do that. And I think we're at the size of the firm and have been where, again, I'm being a little bit too deliberate, taking too much time to make that decision.
It's just not a good use of your time.
Correct.
Your time is way too valuable for that, right? And
even though I won't lie,
expertise.
That business background, I do enjoy it, but that's not what I should be doing. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I always encourage young lawyers to do the same thing, hire early, because people think, oh, I can't afford it, or, they're thinking, it's a $60,000 expense. It's not, it's $5,000 a month. And, think about if you could come up with a couple of things that person can do that will take things off of your plate, the value's there almost immediately.
It's exactly what you said, because most people say that to you when you're there. If you hire somebody that's 60, everybody sees the 60 as tomorrow, but it's not.
All right.
It's paycheck by paycheck, and you don't necessarily want to cut somebody loose if it's not working, but it isn't all up front, and you can manage it. Even when you think you can't, you usually can.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Developing the business and the business side, you learn, even though you took business courses and all, you just didn't practice business and running a business and managing a business for the first decade and a half of your career, and then you're thrust into, okay, now I'm running a business, not just working in the business, I'm working on the business, right? And now you're at a stage where you've got to say, okay, do I want to work more on the business or am I just going to work in the business?
Correct. And there's so many moments of growth when you have the business of what you're going to do. And I would say it's enjoyable to own it. And, part of the two things of the American dream is like owning your land, owning your business when you buy your house, and owning your business when you start your business. But yes, I think being able to continue to grow, to continue to rethink where it's going, project ahead, and cut out those things. I recently made a flow chart of what I want the business to be a few years from now, and what jobs am I doing on that flow chart that I need to remove myself from. And that's where I'm working right now, is to fill those positions so I can just be, president, CEO, or architect.
Now today is the day where you start the marketing side, right? Because you're now podcasting. You said you do no marketing, but here you are sitting here on a podcast.
He is on the podcast.
This is going to be. This is going to open the floodgates for
the podcast.
I mean,
to end.
This is like a million proposals at once.
There you go. Yeah. No, I mean, this is part of my getting. I have a LinkedIn. It's really growing the LinkedIn, growing the podcast. We've reached out to some companies to run the social media because that certainly is not my forte.
Right.
But marketing more so we can grow a little bit to that higher number of people that we want, and being at that level of the company that I think will easily sustain itself and where I can pull back.
And before we let you go, just wanted to touch on the market as you talk about that now. The market down here, I mean, it's kind of on fire still, right? Are you seeing that? Are you seeing any pullbacks?
I think Miami is an anomaly compared to everywhere else, that Miami will stay busy and has stayed busy. Mm-hmm. There is an interesting shift since COVID because a lot of people are working from home. So I would say environments like yours where it's just the office environment, maybe the spaces are downsizing from what they were before. But we do a lot of industrial work, whether it's a 10,000 or 100,000 square foot warehouse or factory space. Those spaces are on fire. They are, the mom and pop or the large businesses that have import, export, or creating products. That market is, I would say, had about a 2 to 3 month slowdown during COVID and then has just continued. And so we do a lot of that. That's the one where when you drive around, you see all those, whether it's in Hialeah, Doral, or Medley. That's a big part of our industry down here.
And there's not enough.
There's not enough. There's not a lot of land. I've heard talking about knocking down smaller office buildings to build more of those buildings. They'll find land wherever they can to build them. Right now, there's land in Hialeah, one of the parks that we're working on. They've got probably 12 more buildings to build out there, and we do all the interiors of those, so we get to learn about all those companies and watch them grow. but that's what we see the most. And there's some public work we do that continues.
Speaking of that, before I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Erik does a lot of work at the zoo. And so if you're ever down at the zoo.
Zoo Miami is a beautiful place.
Zoo Miami, I should specify Zoo Miami, sorry. Erik does a ton of work and has done a ton of work down at Zoo Miami. So if you're down there and looking specifically the restaurant, right?
Yes, Nourish 305.
Yep.
We recently just finished, some of the stuff is back of house. We did the pygmy hippo holding, rhino holding, but we have a large project right now that at the amphitheater where it's going to be a cheetah exhibit where you can see the cheetahs. We're starting work on renovating the giraffe feeding platform to make it larger and covered. Plus, I know, countless other things. We're very busy at the zoo.
So when you're down at the zoo with your children and you're enjoying it, think of Erik Myers and ELM Architects.
ELM ARCH.
ARC, sorry.
Choose your name wisely, by the way, because does ARCH spell arch, arc?
Yeah.
That's one of the things like Foo Fighters always.
And you call it, and do people call it ELM ARCH?
Everybody just calls it ELM.
ELM. But you don't call it ELM? I know it's ELM.
I call it ELM ARCH. Everybody just seems to call it ELM. Yes.
Gotcha.
You want to read us out, Jeffrey?
I'll read us out.
Thank you for doing this, Erik.
No, and actually, before you read us out, I just want to say thank you both, because I think whether it's doing this podcast, the trends you all set with your office and in the environment down here, and what you do for the environment, and the yearly symposium that you have, I think it's just the forum. It's just great for younger, in their business years at least, business owners to just have somebody set an example. So I appreciate you both and what you do.
Thank you.
Man, go on. Like we should.
We should. Why didn't we start with that?
Thank you.
If you heard that and you enjoyed the show, because you're still listening, then please subscribe, share, and leave a review. Subscribing to the show and leaving reviews helps others find the show and helps us grow and devote more time and produce better content for you. And it helps us bring special guests like Erik Myers on the show. Erik, this has been fun. Thanks.
Thanks, Erik. Thank you. Nelson. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Brett.
And Jeffrey. Thank you.
Have a nice day.
For more information on this show and other resources, visit fastamron.com and connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram @FastAmron.